Of Q broadcast, it's taking the world by storm. People are cutting the cord to their high cable bills and moving away from streaming services like Netflix, Hulu, and others for something better. Q broadcast. For just $60 a month, you'll get access to every channel you could ever want, including HBO, Cinemax, and Starz. And the best part, there are no contracts, no hidden fees, and you're free to cancel anytime. With Q Broadcast, you can enjoy streaming live TV, movies, and top series on up to 5 devices at once. Whether you're at home or on the go, Q Broadcast makes sure your entertainment is always at your fingertips. Imagine being able to watch all your favorite channels from anywhere, anytime, without any restrictions. We're talking about thousands of movies, hundreds of TV series, and a huge library of live channels, all in one place. And don't forget video on demand and pay-per-view events. Those are included at no extra cost, so you'll never miss a big event again. Now, take a second and think about your current cable bill. You're probably paying anywhere between $100 and $300 every month, locked into long-term contracts and hit with surprise rate increases. With Q Broadcast, that's a thing of the past. It's just $60 a month. No contracts, no extra fees, no hidden costs, and no price hikes. Why juggle multiple subscriptions like Netflix, Hulu, and cable when Q Broadcast gives you everything you need in one convenient package? People everywhere are switching to Q Broadcast, saving money and getting more content than ever before. So, what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description and sign up for Q Broadcast today. Just $60 a month, no contracts, no hidden fees. It's time to take control of your entertainment and start streaming smarter.
We live in a world where men are told it's harmless. It's just entertainment. But let's stop lying to ourselves. Pornography destroys. It weakens your spirit. It dulls your drive. And it robs you of what real intimacy is supposed to be. Every click is a step away from the man you're supposed to be. We can't call ourselves leaders if we are slaves to a screen.
As someone that is prior service, I know all about discipline. And discipline isn't out there. It's within your mind. Porn rewires your brain, weakens your will, wrecks all of your relationships. It doesn't just stay on a screen. It invades your marriage, your confidence, and your actual purpose. As men, if we don't learn to discipline ourselves, we'll be ruled by our impulses. Now, it is time to stand up and take control before this silent war takes more than you're willing to lose.
Real men don't hide in the shadows of shame. We step up and we protect what's ours. We fight for our wives and kids, our own hearts. Twitter isn't just an app. It's a weapon. It's a tool used to break free and start living like the man that you're meant to be. The battle's here and it starts with you. You can stop living in shame and you can break free today.
Here at the Anomic Age, we know that these times of uncertainty are stressful. It is incumbent upon all of us to put our fears first and bow down to government tyranny. Gone are the days of freely leaving your home, working, and social interactions. In exchange for safety, we will trade liberty. At the Anomic Age, we understand. However, just in case you want to get off your knees and stop being a sniveling coward, check out the John Age Project at anomicage.com.
Meet Anne Morrissey, who is here with her daughter, Dareth. Dareth is 17 years old. Mrs. Morrissey, I don't have to tell you that most parents would be extremely depressed if their daughter came home one day looking like this. I assume that was your response shock, anger, depression? What was it?
I was extremely angry. I really went bananas.
Yeah, how old was she when this happened?
Possibly 13, 14 years old.
We're talking like it's a disease, isn't that?
Well,
Yeah. How did she explain it to you, Mrs. Morrison?
there was very poor communication until we went into counseling. And it almost broke up our family. But through counseling and Serena, I can understand it better.
What do you understand?
That she feels like she doesn't want to be like everyone else, and she wants to be her own person. And through the dress code and her lifestyle, she's expressing this. It doesn't conform with our rules, but we're learning to cope, and it's a very, very difficult thing. Extremely difficult.
Dareth, let's let you talk for yourself. You're from Long Beach, California.
I just can't handle being like everybody else because that's what everybody else wants, you know. Just because somebody else does something does not mean that I have to do it. You know, I have my own morals and ideals, and I go by them.
Are you drug-free, Dareth?
Yes, I am.
Is this a political statement then? Do you have some misgiving about the society that you see?
Yeah, there's a lot of problems, you know. A lot of the people are really aware of what's going on, you know, and I don't like it, you know. There's a lot of problems.
What?
I don't like the way society is based.
What bothers you? Give us some of the misgivings you have.
The rich, the poor, the people starving, the wars, you know. Why can't, you know, everybody just get along and just live their life?
Here at the Anomic Age, we know that these times of uncertainty are stressful. It is incumbent upon all of us to put our fears first and bow down to government tyranny. Gone are the days of freely
Salario and Chevy.
Propagating truth in a world of lies. You are listening to the John H. Project.
Trust no one. Trust no one. Trust no one.
You found it. You're here. You're headlong down the runaway train that is the Anomic Age, and I am your host, John H. Hailing proudly from the coastal plains of the Old North State, I will be your tour guide this evening as we take a somewhat satirical journey down the path of murder, destruction, mayhem, and the extermination of human life on this planet. A forced march into obsolescence thrust upon us by a global satanic death cult of pedophiles. Check out anomicage.com. Looks a lot like that, folks. It really does. If you can do no more, please like all the likes, subscribe to all the subscriptions. PayPal.me/anomicage. Patreon.com/anomicage as well. We got the free iPhone app. Excuse me. We got the free iPhone app, the free Android app, the subscribe by email link, and the free newsletter. So much more right there at anomicage.com. No matter what you happen to be listening to and or watching this on, you can definitely buy me a cup of coffee. You got the iPhone app, the Android app, but most importantly, if you would like to help me on this voyage, on this quest, we got the Patreon link, the buy me a cup of coffee, the Cash app, and a PayPal link too. My gracious goodness, X Lab. It's all right there at anomicage.com. So if you're so inclined, if you like this show, I hope there's a lot of new listeners out there. You know what to do. If you can do no more, just share the links. Put me on Twitter. Put me on YouTube. Put me on whatever social media account you might happen to be doing that on. You can definitely share me live right now. You can save pre-recorded versions of the show and do what it do. You know how to do it. So, a whole lot to get into this evening. A whole lot to get into this evening. I gotta say, I'm pretty excited about this this artwork. This artwork's coming courtesy of yours truly. That's me, John H. Took the old Faces of Death artwork and sort of revamped it into what I wanted it to be. Moved some stuff around, changed it a heck of a lot, centered it, and put in there what it needed to be in there. So that's really what we got going down today. Let's see what in the heck is going on here. There we go. That's exactly what we need it to be, isn't it? Okay, well, hooty poo. Got some stuff in here I don't like. There we go. Get that mess out of here. I tell you, we don't need that. We don't need your stinking stuff. I just don't need it. Okie dokie, folks. Let's see. How bizarre. That's all I can say, folks. Sometimes you just got to say nice things because, you know, because you don't want to say the things that are actually on your mind. So we just won't say those things. We'll say nice things instead. Just bear with me just a moment, folks. That's exactly what I knew. I knew if I pushed the right button 6 or 7 times rather than just one, I had a doggone feeling, you know, that we could make this sucker work. And alas, we just did. Holy shnikes. You just got to laugh sometimes. So you just got to laugh. All right. You didn't come here to watch me push buttons. I am excited about the show art, though. So Optics of Death is the title of the hour. We'll be with you here into the wee hours of the AM. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to talk a lot about Optics of Death tonight. I will cover some of, I guess you would say, the obligatory things that we got to cover. We'll cover the Charlie Kirk stuff. We'll cover the latest developments on the hypothetical, possibly, maybe suspect. Who knows at this point in the game? Who the stinking dog knows? So we'll cover that for sure. But more to the point, I really wanted to get into this evening was indeed the optics of death, folks, because this is going to kind of couple into the show that I wanted to do this evening. I was going to cover tonight the downfall of North Carolina, but really in the broader sense, and I was going to cover really how we have ended up here, how we've ended up with this completely cucked, pathetic, lame, wussified, and something else-ified males of the population. I was really going to trace that back and do sort of a historical scape, kind of from the age of the television on. And I just might still do that. But more to the point this evening, I'm going to kind of switch things up just a little bit, go in a little bit different direction, and discuss how the psyche of the American people has been manipulated. Because I don't see anybody talking about this, and I think it's quite the big deal, the proverbial big deal, if you will. So we're going to get into that for sure. So we're going to start way back with the advent of the television, because this connects to so much history and to so much science, to be quite honest. So we all know that the actual burgeoning television was 1920s, but it did not really take form sort of in that every American household up until about the early 1950s. That's when it became more of the everyman's box. And we got to talk about some history here, because really what the television did is it replaced the radio. So we're talking way pre-transistors here, where a radio was really this big honking piece of furniture that the family would gather around sort of at the end of the night, perhaps after a nice family dinner, and they would get the news and they would get the stories and, you know, just wonderful radio, especially the spooky variety, my personal favorite. So that transcends with, I would say, I hate to say the death of the radio, but the death of the radio in the incarnation that it once was. By the 1950s, it was on its way out. You know, it was kind of like the Blu-ray of today. It's still there, but it's very much on its way out. So I would suggest the same thing with the television early 1950s. So prior to that, the newspaper and the radio were the primary disseminators of propaganda, the black, the white, and the gray. But also you had the Hollywood industry was starting. You know, you had early silent movies, early 1900s. You definitely had movies with obvious sound by the 1940s and 50s for sure. But the problem was it wasn't really the everyman's thing. It was something you had to get a ticket to. You had to go make a appointment basically to go check out. Whereas the radio, it was a fixture, it was a piece of furniture, and that's what the television became too. It became a central piece of the living room. It became that central piece of where the American people began to get their news from. And of course, por supuesto, the propaganda. So that's really what was going on here. So prior to that, we did not really see what we're talking about for tonight. We didn't see the optics of death pedaled to the mainstream. We didn't. There was still grotesque imagery of death. That's been going on since the dawn of man. Okay. But most notably, it was kind of segregated to those aspects or elements of the population that chose to be in the combative world of the military, or to a lesser extent, especially them, because the culture wasn't complete dog manure. That would be primarily the military. So you did see the ghastly, very grisly scenes of the Great War, World War I, where it was just trench warfare, just horrible fighting going on. And that was the one, of course, that was said, oh, we're never going to have this again. We're never going to do this again. Of course not, you know, until we did with World War II, till we got conned again by another false flag in World War II. So you got the sinking of the Lusitania, the sinking of the Maine, and then we got Pearl Harbor bringing us into World War II. And by the Maine, I'm talking about the Spanish-American War, in case you were wondering or playing bingo on what in the world's John talking about tonight. So with that, those were the main audiences of the grisly, grotesque, the optics of death. So well after World War II, we're into the 1950s, but TV is very vanilla at this point in the game. It's Father Knows Best. We move on to Donna Reed. We move on to Leave It to Beaver. We move on to that golden era, the cusp of Americana, the golden age that most people, if they're being real, would hearken back to and saying, man, I wish we could go back there. So what that was, it was kind of the bait on the hook. It was the bait on the hook, getting the American people to buy in to this new thing called television, because they did it in a wholesome, loving way. And that was great until you move into the 1960s. 1960s, what do we begin to see? We begin to see the transition into a far darker era. So we see the first real anti-hero is the show To Catch a Thief, or I believe It Takes a Thief. I might be jumbling those words up. I believe it's To Catch a Thief. And that was one of the early shows. I would say it was a primer to something like Dexter, way more softcore. But To Catch a Thief really was the anti-hero rising up as sort of this blurred line. No longer it's black hats and white hats, it's cowboys, and then it's cops and robbers. It Takes a Thief blurred those lines, perhaps for the very first time, to the masses. What else did we see going on in the 60s? Oh, not much, just a whole lot of killing. Granted, Jerry Rivers, you might know him better as Geraldo Rivera, did not actually release to the masses the Zapruder film to the early 1970s, but make no mistake about it, there was grisly scenes to be had in Daley Plaza with the murder of John F. Kennedy. What else did we see? Not plastered all over social media, because that didn't exist, not even plastered all over media, but we definitely began to see very grisly scenes by the 1960s. We saw the murder of tons of icons. You want me to rattle off a few? Malcolm X, JFK, RFK. And by the end of that, when we go into the early 70s, MLK. Then we just keep right on killing with John Lennon and attempted assassination of Ronald Reagan and the like. But I ain't done with the 60s quite yet. So in the midst of all that death, we also begin, predicated on the false flag of the Gulf of Tonkin, the Vietnam War. So we see all kinds of grisly conflict, of course, with the military classes. And in a war like no other, because it was definitely a conscription army, it was a war nobody wanted to be in. It was forced upon primarily the lower classes, forced upon primarily people that were trying to get out of a jail or prison stint, forced upon those derelicts of the society of that day. But by I'd say the mid 60s and well on into the late 60s and 70s, what did you begin to see? You began to see those body bags. You began to see those grisly images all over the news. Oh, yeah. So you begin to see more of this desensitization, more of these optics of death. And all this was really, I would suggest, part of what we gleaned from the Nazis after Operation Paperclip and the rat lines. You see, we gleaned MK Ultra. We gleaned a whole new era of trauma-based mind control. And most of you are probably familiar with a lot of this trauma-based mind control because it's been quite ubiquitous in a lot of the alternative media. I've had a lot of guests on here talking about that also. So if you're into that, please check it out. There's a lot of good guests out there. There's a lot of coverage of me covering this on here as well. So quite obviously, you could see some of this with folks like the RFK shooter, Sirhan, like the patsy for JFK, Lee Harvey Oswald, like the murderer of Lee Harvey Oswald too. All those have some very, very obvious connections to MK Ultra and mind control. If you don't know about it, you should look into it. So I would suggest that since the late 40s, for sure, America was borrowing more than a page out of the book, maybe just the whole doggone book, of trauma-based mind control, of MK Ultra, of all sort of drug-induced experimentations. I think we're all familiar with most of those. The one that comes to mind most obviously is Midnight Climax, where they had hookers doping up Johns, resulted in an FBI agent's murder. He supposedly, quote unquote, fell out the window. Right. So we're multiple generations into this whole trauma-based mind control by the 1970s. And by the 1970s, the proverbial decade or summer of love is over. It's kind of ironic because that whole decade was filled with death from stem to stern. But punctuating the end of that decade or proverbial era has got to be the Manson murders. If you haven't looked into the Manson murders, you probably should take a look at it because it's got the same sort of handlers, the same sort of CIA mind control, the same sort of MK Ultra. Charles Manson has those fingerprints all over him. And I would suggest all over his quote-unquote cult as well. So the Tate LaBianca murders, obviously, in my humble opinion, an op to really scar the psyche of the love generation permanently. If Vietnam and the cavalcade of dead activists in the 60s weren't enough, I think that was really the final nail in the coffin for that whole decade. What'd you see in the 70s? You saw the 70s finally were bringing the Vietnam War to an end. Most of the rock icons are dead around the age of 27 or just going on the Golden Oldies tours by then. They're a vestige of their former selves, to say the least. we roll into the era of disco, and then finally we rock out the 70s with something I would suggest is pretty much as fabricated as the hippie movement. Hate to say it, but that punk movement starts to stink the more you look at it. It really does. Then we go into the 80s with old Ronnie. We all know what happens from them. I believe most of us do. As we roll into the 80s, we've got another MK Ultra, another mind control opportunity here. We take out John Lennon. We take out or attempt to take out Ronald Reagan. Both of the shooters in that are just stem to stern deep state agents, MK Ultra, CIA mind control. Obvious. But what do we see with both of those folks? We see more optics of death. We've seen the steady ramping up of those optics of death since the 1960s. Those early just Americana television shows, they were the gateway drug that got everybody hooked. Where we are now with social media and full-blown tech addiction, I think is not accidental. If you look into the flicker rate of the TV, it's meant to put your brain in an alpha state. It is meant to induce a hypnagogic state, a very suggestible state. And that's exactly what it does. I mean, this is obvious as well, but there was very clear subliminal messaging in a lot of those early films, especially even going on into the 50s and 60s. The great suicidal tendencies with the song, Don't Bleep With Me Subliminally. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's an open secret. It's a well-known fact, folks. This is not conspiratorial. This is just factual. So all that I would suggest brings us into exactly where we are today, in just the completely ramped up optics of death. And I'll give you a little behind the curtain on me, because if you were to ask me this like 20 years ago, or especially ask me this in adolescence, I would have said, you're full of prunes. This is Ulster talk. This is that old generation not wanting to get into the cool hip stuff that the kids are involved in, But the more you look at it, the more I think it just kind of speaks for itself. Because I would submit to you that the hip-hop culture of today was preceded by the punk culture that they thought, yeah, this is going to take off. This is going to be that fly in the ointment that destroys culture. It didn't. And then I think they really pushed the narrative of the heavy metal culture. Ooh, spooky. Remember all the satanic panic and everybody's satanic, and look at all the imagery and oh my goodness, it's Venom and Motley Crue and Seventh Son of the Seventh Son, Iron Maiden and Number of the Beast and all this mess. Okay, here's the hilarious part of that. I'm not going to submit to you that none of those bands were satanic, but what I will say is they pale in comparison to the complete despot culture that is today. It looks like a caricature. It looks like a joke. When you look at the Sabrina Carpenters, when you look at any of the hip hop, when you look at any of the music of today and compare it just straight across the board to the quote unquote spooky music of the 80s, it is downright comedic. It's not even fun. It doesn't even hold a candle to the mess of today. But again, I'll submit to you, I think that both the punk and the metal culture were just kind of failed ops. They hit a home run with the hippie counterculture. They hit a home run with the Tavistock created Beatles, the Rolling Stones, the very much fabricated American bands that seem to sort of march in line with that same sort of nonsense. And I think they thought, we're going to do the same thing in the 70s and the 80s. And they struck out with both of those. But fear not, Sumner Redstone brought us gangster rap in the late 80s and then right on into today. And even if you look at the fledgling gangster rap era, even that, it just pales in comparison to the just complete open Satanism of what we're seeing today. So all of that really is the gateway drug. All of it. It is where we are today. It does bring us into the optics of death. Absolutely does. It's just prima facie, optics of death. So if you're looking at this through the lens of addiction, we've kept bumping up. Just keep bumping up a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, until you don't even understand how far you have come. That Overton window has moved so far over, you just don't even grasp the person that you used to be. Especially if you look at this through the multi-generational lens, because multi-generationally, the people of this generation, the current generation of today, whatever they want to be called, I don't even know. They have no inkling of what it was like to be a Gen Xer, and certainly not a boomer. Forget about it. That world doesn't even exist anymore. And just like the world doesn't exist, technologically speaking, primarily, the world does not exist vis-a-vis the innocence that once was, contrasted to the innocence lost of today. All of that, again, brought to you through optics of death. Optics of death, folks. We didn't even get into the proverbial good stuff. We didn't even get there. I don't think there is a good stuff. But everything you're seeing on the screen there with optics of death, it's just another piece of the puzzle. Because in my generation, I got to say, I was asleep at the wheel for all of this. This was all high school for me, except for the JFK assassination. And the 9/11, I was after high school. But the Alfred F. Murrow building, the Info bomb, Oklahoma City bomb. Yeah. That was a government op, folks. Just like Terrence Yakey being tortured to death and shot twice in the back of the head. Yeah. But you saw it all over the little screen back then. Just the television. Same thing with Waco. The Branch Davidians. That's how that whole op was labeled when I was in high school. Everybody poked fun and laughed. Oh, that crazy cult member. And then they burned the people alive. Yeah. Burned the people alive. And we're not going to forget Ruby Ridge either, are we, folks? That was another big op that made all kinds of mainstream media news coverage at the time. More optics of death, more optics of death. You want a little more? Sure you do. Because it was proliferating through every single avenue. It wasn't just the news. It was proliferating through the movies. I'm a huge horror movie fan, but I got to say, for better or worse, it didn't make things better. Started out with, it's not really the first horror movie, but recognizable by most. With Psycho, you move on, you kick the can down the road. You see Rosemary's Baby, you see The Exorcist, and then you get into the slasher genre with Last House on the Left, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Halloween, Friday the 13th, and all that stuff that I just love so much. I do. Even Faces of Death, folks. I loved Faces of Death. I thought it was cool and edgy and stuff when I was, high school. I made a shirt just like this, except it actually said Faces of Death. It was the original logo. I wasn't quite as proficient with the graphic design as I am today, so I couldn't make it look quite as cool, but just used the actual logo. Made a copy from a video store. There was a copy machine there. Made a copy of the VHS. Looked just like that. Took that to my graphics class. Got the positive or the negative and the positive. Burned myself the screen. Two-colored that joker, red and white. Thought it was just so cool, man. I didn't realize it, folks. I was living in the optics of death, too. I was being desensitized and demoralized to death. To quote the old Embrace song, death is not glamorous. It's not. And the real reason I wanted to do this show tonight is because it was darn near overwhelming in the wake of the Charlie Kirk murder to see just how far we have fallen. Please don't think that I have any illusions or delusions that we are better than we actually are. If anything, I am glass half gone. It's not even empty. I don't even think there's a glass there. I am dark side of the force, black pilled to the 10th power. Okay. So I know that our society is gone. In my humble opinion, it's not coming back. There's no talking anyway out of this. There's no reasoning with any of these people. There is no way. I'm sorry to say. I'll go into verse if I have to. I just may. But there is no way, in my humble opinion, to unring the bell, to put the toothpaste back in the tube, to pull our way out of this. But I got to say, even as dark as I am, when I was looking at all the Charlie Kirk news, and then in the wake of his murder, just looking at the scum, just the unmitigated, bottom of the barrel, low class, common street trash scum all over social media, just getting their jollies. And here's the real issue, folks, because it really transcends the optics of death. Because with our current society, so much of it is predicated on virtue signaling, or really just negative attention, whether it's virtue signaling from your own tribe, be that right, left, or otherwise, or it's negative virtue signaling, if you will. It's negative attention from the opposing tribe. So it was quite clear to me following the shooting of Charlie Kirk, when you saw this, I can't remember what the guy's name is. Everybody's posted all over the internet. Some sort of lanky bun in his hair looking guy, I believe, getting up, just cheering, standing up, and just looking back seemingly at the person who just did the shooting. Somebody made this point quite clear. If there's a shooting going on, nobody's going to be standing up unless they know they're not going to get shot. AKA, they know what's going down and they know the people pulling triggers. So if that person's not already in some custody or person of interest, I don't know why. Just obvious to me, huh? But that was quite telling to me. That was really quite telling. It shows you the real depravity. It's mental illness, but I think, as many have suggested, it is a spiritual problem. It might very well be a cultural possession, if that's even a thing. I mean, it's quite clear you can have a groupthink and sort of crowd mentality. That's obvious. But this really transcends that, because this transcends that in the sense that I believe these sort of pseudo cultures have clearly been made on social media. Social media has become sort of its own pseudo culture, maybe even a paraculture in today's society, because people think they have camaraderie, tribal agency, if you will, cross-culturally, across the globe, people they've never even actually seen. And then by proxy, in order to get more credence, if you will, in your tribe, this is very tribal. I mean, this is like very anthropological. So to get more credence in your tribe, you do things to gain or garner the approval of the tribal members, the elders, if you will. So whoever you think's got the most likes, whoever's the big cheese in your tribe, oh, I can get more credence if I show myself and make a funny video. Ha ha ha! I'm making fun of Charlie Kirk's death. You know, I saw that all over social media today. Two things ubiquitous on social media today. It was teachers and academicians posting their joyous approval of Charlie Kirk's death. And the flip side of that, if it is a flip side, would be the copious amounts of mentally ill, possessed people that were singing, dancing, just having a ball, high-fiving, just posting memes, making shirts, the whole 9 yards, that this guy was murdered. And somebody's tapping their finger. It wasn't really a murder. He didn't even really die. I guess he's out on an island with Epstein somewhere. I don't know, man. I just don't know. But I will take it at face value until proven otherwise that it was a murder. So if we take it at face value, a 31-year-old man with 2 kids and a wife was killed. By all accounts, a Christian. By all accounts, a heterosexual man with a family. that were his biological children. So I already said this last night. That makes him persona non grata for everyone. For the Muslims, for the immigrants, for our greatest ally, for all those masquerading as Satan communists, aka the Democrats, and everyone in between. So clearly there was a motive. They didn't want him to be running for president in a couple years. That's quite evident. They didn't want him going out all over college campuses and conversing with these people. And I got to say, I choose my words carefully here, because I don't want to be as dark as I really am, but pull no punches, man. I just think it's a waste of stinking time. I'm sorry. I'm not saying his death was in vain. I'm just saying you ain't going to catch me doing it. Okay. Because at a certain point, there is no helping the folks that do not want help. Okay. So just as you can't go into a mental institution in the 1970s and try to teach physics to somebody that is mentally retarded and has the intellect of a 5-year-old. That cannot happen. I'm sorry. It just can't. I hate to break it to you. It's not going to happen. Just as you cannot teach a chimpanzee how to speak. They have a raised voice box. In order for that to even happen, in order for them to make anything in the consonant range of sounds, they have to have a dropped voice box. So although they have the same sort of musculature, the same sort of skeletal hyoid bone, almost very similar to humans, although you could argue they might even have the neocortex development. Sorry, what they don't have is the physiology to make consonant sounds. So try all you will. You're not going to teach a chimp how to speak. You're not. He can use a lexicon keyboard. He can use American Sign Language, but that's about it. So I hate to be that guy, but there is no turning the ship around. There is no, oh, let me talk to you, crazed person on the left. That's a he, she, they, them that looks like some sort of, satanic pirate with tattoos on their face and pierced from the hilt down. And just, I'm sorry, that's just not going to happen. And I will say this, folks, short of the Lord Jesus Christ re-entering this earthly realm and bestowing his great mighty power on people, I do not believe that it is of men to turn these people around. I just do not. We can pray for them. We can hope for a cultural exorcism, a very paracultural exorcism, perhaps. That's what needs to take place across social media. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's the answer. I'm not sure. What I am sure of is, sadly, the optics of death have changed our society. I'll even go back to the video games. I know there's a lot of video game addicts out there. I'm sorry. I think that's stupid. I played some Pac-Man and even had a little Sega Game Gear and a Nintendo when I was a kid. And that's it. It was a fun thing when I was a kid. It's stupid. I'm sorry, folks. If you're an adult doing this, I'm sorry. That's just my facts on it. It's just idiotic. But I remember when Mortal Kombat came out. I know, so I'm dating myself, right? I was kind of beyond all that, even at that point. But I got a little Game Gear. Okay, let me play this. Let's see what all the hype's about. You pull some guy's spine out and blood shoots out. Oh, you put in this guy. Ooh, so hardcore. It's crazy, right? Yeah. Well, then you flash forward to the other games where there's people getting raped and there's people performing the rape. There's people performing the murder. There's people performing, bleep sakes, I'm sure you can perform an abortion or some sort of human sacrifice in a game now. I don't know. I saw all over social media today. What was this game? Rublix or some BS? I don't even know the name of this mess. But I do know that they had down to age 5 playing this game and simulating in the game with other children the Charlie Kirk murder in the game. Again, these are optics of death, folks. These are optics of death. Because at this point in the game, we've all seen so much death, it's quite passé. It's kind of like the old Slapshot song, Desensitized. We are indeed desensitized as a people, as a culture, as a society. You not want to hear this, but the Bible calls us to be innocent as children. The Bible wants us to maintain our innocence as the children in order to really glean that passage into heaven. It doesn't say go out there and experience all the worldliness you can. Go out there and experience all the death, all the porn, all the sacrifice, all the killing. Watch all of it every minute of the day. Did you see how many times, the World Trade Center fell? I mean, that's one I remember quite well. And sadly, I got sucked into it. I got sucked into the optics of death. Because I'm sure, like a whole lot of people, when that happened, I was glued to the TV for days and days. I just kept the TV on 24 hours a day. I'd wake up to it. I'd go to sleep to it. And I cannot even possibly calculate how many times I saw the towers go down, how many times I saw the planes hit the buildings, Ridiculous. Because somebody out there's going, man, I'm tough, I'm hard, I'm blah, blah. It doesn't affect me. Yeah, right. What would we have? Shell shock. We had combat fatigue, and now we've trickled down to PTSD. And the weird thing is, folks, is it's not just people that have been in combat. It's not just people in the military anymore. Those people assuredly have seen a lot of the quote unquote stuff. But the sick part of it is now, folks, we've got people that have never seen combat that have PTSD because depending on what you allow in, we got people that have seen so much optics of death. It's just insane. And I suppose I'm saying all that to say this, folks. You've got to limit the stuff that you let in. If you're new to this show, I'm glad because you haven't heard this 1,000,001 times. But you got to limit what you let in. Some bells you can't unring. And particularly with the younger generation. If you got kids, you better be watching what they're watching. If you are a moron, you're giving them a phone, a pad, a pod, a device, and everything in between. Please don't be that myopic and stupid. Please don't. But if you feel like that's just something you got to do, then be a casualty in the fight. But more to the point, if they have to have some of this mess for their satanic schooling, then you better make sure there's a whole lot of looking over their shoulder. Because there's a lot of stuff out there you can just stumble upon quite accidentally now, and you can't unsee some of this stuff. You just can't. I'm an older guy, I'd say, and I don't want to see some of this stuff. I look back at a lot of stuff I saw on TV on stuff like Faces of Death, which is low-rung, almost comedy compared to the world that we live in today. That's the sick part of it all, folks. But it can very easily become a sensory overload. I was going to bring that up later on, but it's the old Bad Religion song. It's a sensory overload. It's a hell of a time. Yeah. I believe that's on the re-release of How Could Hell Be Any Worse? I got the vinyl behind me, but the 80 through 85 CD has got that song on it. I know. Not the re-release of How Could Hell Be Any Worse? I digress. It doesn't matter. Somebody's going, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're doing. Yeah, pretty decent record. Anyway. It's very easy to get sucked in. I think much more now with social media than ever before. That's why social media can be such a detriment, because it's easily a tool that can suck you in. It's a tool that is really predicated on that dopamine drip. Oh, I got a like. Ooh, somebody commented. Oh my goodness. So many people are watching my thoughts, or watching my memes, my images, all this mess. And it's a slippery slope because that dopamine drip comes so quickly. And our society is just such a parallax view of hell now, where people aren't spending time together. People don't have real friends. People aren't spending time with family. The mom's gone. The dad's gone. You got trannies in the home. You got dad with 2 moms, mom with 2 dads. Who bleep knows what's going on, folks? We live in an open sewer. So when someone gets all pharisaical and gets up here like, I can't believe all these OnlyFans and all these addicts and everybody's smoking weed. I can. Have you seen our society? As I said before, it's a slippery slope. And people want to get that attention that they're not getting from dear old mom and dad. Like the old Chris Rock joke before he was in the op with Will Smith. He actually was a pretty funny guy for a couple records anyway. But one of his last records, he was funny. I can't remember if that was Bigger and Blacker or maybe it was the one that came before that. I don't know. Anyway, he said something pretty prescient. As a dad, he said, one of your only job really is to keep your daughters off the pole. That's a pretty doggone true statement, Chris. Got to say. Because if you're not conveying what's really going on, somebody else will be all too happy to fill in what's a bunch of BS. If you're not giving them hugs, you're not giving them pats on the back, you're not disciplining them when need to be, there's all too many people that'll just say, oh, do what you want. You know? Do what you want. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Right, Aleister Crowley? That might as well be the slogan for America. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. That should be our new national anthem, our new credo. Maybe Aleister Crowley can take the place of the bald eagle, because that is America in a nutshell. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. And it's all this optics of death, man. It really is. It shaped and changed our society. We were not like this 60 years ago. 60 years ago, when JFK was assassinated, I get it. There was a lot of Republicans that were happy about this. I guess you could argue maybe if there was social media, there would have been Republicans dancing in the street and making silly songs, but I don't believe that to be true. We were not that debased as a culture in the 1960s, not the early 60s anyway. By the end of it, it was a complete just brothel of filth. But you know, by the early 60s, when JFK was murdered, that wasn't like that. But now, flash forward 2025, you got people out there with a megaphone singing a song. You got people just making all these videos. And like I said before, they're doing it to get the dopamine drip. They're doing it because they can get street cred for that from their tribe. And from the opposing tribe, they can get negative attention. Just like the girl that's up there taking all the clothes off and do whatever on OnlyFans. It's like, oh, well, that's profitable. And also, oh, I can get attention for this. I'm getting hugs for this. I'm getting the pat on the back for this. So whereas a girl might not get any likes, any shares or whatever you want to call it, just sitting up there talking about how she loves volunteering at the homeless shelter. She loves doing X, Y, and Z. Nobody gives a... But then that same girl a couple weeks later says, oh, well, you know what I can do? I can wear this low-cut top and get up here, and I got millions of likes. I got money coming in. Oh, look at me. Screw you, Dad and Mom. I don't need y'all's approval anymore. I got the world's approval. But the world's approval is not the approval you need, folks. God does not want us to seek the world's approval. He does not want us to go for the optics of death. That's why I prefaced my show last night when I showed, I would say, some of the most gruesome footage I've ever shown on this show. And I said, hey, I'm not doing this for likes. I'm not doing this for anything but your edification. And I was going to go back into that tonight, but I thought, you know what? Why? Everyone's already seen this 8 days a week, twice on Sunday. They've had probably the Charlie Kirk shooting. Everybody's seen that. The uncensored version. For Pete's sakes, at least the Ukrainian girl that was murdered in North Carolina was kind of blurred out. Left a little to the imagination, I guess. The Charlie Kirk thing was just straight faces to death, folks. Optics of death. So indeed, I do believe that it has scarred or further scarred another generation. just as the false flag of 9/11 scarred myself and my generation. Just like the incidents of the 1960s scarred that generation. You could say the same thing with the images on your screen there that we've already covered. Oklahoma City bombing, Waco, Ruby Ridge. All this scarred a generation, folks. You just didn't know it at the time. At the time, you just kept it moving. You just kept on going, oh, yeah, I'm doing fine. What are you talking about? It's no big deal. It's just normal. It's what we do around here. And that is the sick part of it all. Because I've often defined culture in and of itself as just what we do around here. It's all the norms, it's all the values, it's all the standards. It's the music, it's the dress, it's the language, it's the lingo. It's all of it. Put in a nice little box. So sadly, if part of that is now the optics of death, what's the most ghastly thing we can keep showing you over and over again? Trauma-based mind control, folks. There's a reason they kept showing those buildings falling down in every single station all day long for months at a time. Trauma-based mind control. So I'll be devil's advocate on this one because I know somebody out there saying, but John, we have to know what's going on. We've got to make ready for what's to come, as the great John B. Wells said. Yeah, that's true. And here's what I will say on that one, because I'll play devil's advocate on this one, because I do believe there's a bit of truth to that in just this instance. The truth of that is that for many Americans, this showed the satanic cult as what it actually is. Because that's the thing, man. It's kind of like the red herring. It's exactly the parallel that I made to the spooky heavy metal. When you think of things that are satanic, when you think of the devil, you know, people always jump to that obvious scene from the movie. It's the guy on the what's that? The red devil sausage guy. I don't even know what the bleep that is, but anyway, they always jump to that. You know, it's the red jumpsuit guy with the ponytail and the fork, and it's the most spooky creature coming from the closet to grip your soul. You know, that sort of thing. Hate to break it to you, it's not. Okay? That's not it. If you've gotten to the point where you're seeing that, you've blown through all the stop signs and the roadblocks and everything else along the way. Because I do believe that what all this evil has shown us in the last 48 hours here, it's that, to kind of paraphrase Full Metal Jacket, we're all in a world of, to go one step further, it's a big bleep sandwich and we're all going to have to take a bite. Because it has obviously and fully revealed to the masses, if there was any question in your mind, this is one of the sentiments I've seen all over social media. Oh my gosh, now we really understand that these people want to kill us. Like they actually mean business. No bleep, folks. Did it really take this to prove that to you? Air, food, water, all poison. Bill Gates with GMO foods, vaccines full of deadly toxins. You know, every other day there's some big disaster in the coast, in the forest, there's something burning. I mean, this is just commonplace, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Make no mistake about it. They want you dead. So, devil's advocate, if anything good can come from this, I hope to God that it has shaken awake the people on the right that thought this was a political battle, that thought we were going to somehow convince these low IQ K through 12 indoctrination, college, university weaponization victims, if we could somehow just convince them, we could just say the right words, they just ding, 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 they'd wake up and go, holy shnikes, it's not just a clump of cells, it's a human baby, we're murderers. That's not going to happen, folks. You can't do that. I'm sorry. This is not possible. And somebody's going, well, what about Uncle Billy? He came back. He was a commie fruit bat. He turned it all around. Yeah, okay. There's a few and far between, you know. Yeah, broken clock's right twice a day. The Lord can intervene anytime he wants into your life and jerk you from the darkness into the light. So, yeah, anything is possible with Christ. I will humbly defer that. Abso-smurfly right, yeah. Devil's advocate, though, I believe it has shaken a lot of people awake. A lot of people are finally saying, oh, man, I'm going to take the safety off. Oh, man, I'm going to actually put one in the chamber when I go carry, legally and lawfully in the places I'm allowed to go. Because after all, we don't have a Second Amendment here in the land of the sheep, home of the slave. Nah. We got the 68 Gun Control Act, the complete copy of the Nazi Enabling Act from what was it, 1933? Yeah, that is a basic, complete copy of the 68 Gun Control Act, which basically says if you commit any felonies, we can take your mess. Holy, yeah, you're just gone. You're screwed. And then I guess if you live in one of these communist bleep holes, then you don't get to carry at all. Or if you're in the slave state of North Carolina, you got to get a proper permit, a piece of paper to carry your gun. Mm-hmm. How southern, North Carolina, you complete bumbling joke of boobs. I digress. So I do hope that if nothing else, this whole melange has awakened the masses to the fact that, yeah, you're not voting your way out of this. You're not going to talk them off the ledge. These people want you dead. If they get the opportunity, they will kill you. If you are dumb enough to sacrifice your children to the cult of academia, you may as well take your child to Moloch, a la the biblical times. Go sacrifice your child to the golden calf. Go ahead, because that's what you're doing. And I know somebody's going, well, my child came out okay and they didn't fall for it. Yeah, a broken clock's right twice a day, folks. But vast majority, the proof is in the pudding. You could take a perfectly strong Christian conservative child. When they go through K through 12 indoctrination, they're about tore up from the floor up. All they need is 4 more years, or actually it's 5 now. So don't fall for that 4 years joke. 5 more years, and they are fully weaponized in the cult of academia. They buy all the liberal garbage. They think it's a choice. They think everybody's a victim. They buy into the proletariat, bourgeoisie, Marxist dichotomy. They buy into it all. Okay? And that's why we have these completely deranged people that have been so suffused in the optics of death, so completely imbued with K through 12 indoctrination, college, university weaponization, that there really is no turning back. Who is the person? Sky Valadez, Valadez, Valadez. That's the person of interest that the FBI is claiming they got a $100 bounty out on. Do we have an image for this boob? I'm pretty sure we do. I'm trying to turn a corner here and not be myself. Here's the video. We'll take this down and we'll show you. Here's the video of this individual. We'll just play it. I don't think there's any audio for this. This is the person of interest. It's been sharpened up with AI, full disclosure. Sky Valadez is this individual that is the person of interest. They believe him to be possibly a trigger puller in this whole thing. And if you look at his images from online, hate to break it to you, but yeah, he is definitely indeed falling in line with all of the usual suspect tranny cult nonsense. So that's what we got. We got time for anything else? We got a little bit of time. Let's give you a little bit of news, because I know people like to hear the news. They're tired of hearing me yammer on. If you're tired of hearing me yammer on, well, just yammer yourself somewhere else. I don't give up. What we got next is this little lovely, huh? I was going to cover this last night on the show, but I said, I can't speak to this with 100% validity yet. And this is from archive.org because I don't believe it's still running on the Amazon site. But what it shows you here is that this little ditty, The Shooting of Charlie Kirk, a comprehensive account of the Utah Valley University attack, the aftermath, and the America's response. Sounds cool, right? Not really. It sounds demented and deranged. But guess what? Mira aquí, clase. Mira la fecha. ¿Cuál es aquí? Septiembre Nueve. Says 9th of September, 2025. That wouldn't really be a fly in the ointment, I guess, unless the event didn't actually happen until the 10th. Things that make you go, Sounds a lot like in Australia when they had already published in the news at the time that JFK was killed. Sounds a lot like the BBC on a live feed saying, oh, yeah, the building 7's fallen down, and the chick looks back and says, oopsie, no es verdad. Let's go to break. And then she comes back and says, oh, alas, building 7 has fallen down. Imagine that. Yeah, right. But wait, there's more, because everybody's waiting for the other shoe to drop, or in this instance, the op. Chilling reminder, multiple historically black universities under lockdown after receiving threats. Woo-hoo. What did I tell you, folks? Was it me? I believe it was that said, check it out. What we got coming down the pike is nothing more than the usual suspect ops. So op number 1, we get a black dude that's clearly quite deranged himself to murder a white chick. His last name was Brown. She was Snow White. Imagine that. Take 2, we got Charlie Kirk murdered in cold blood on a college campus in Utah. Killer allegedly still at large. I would say the killer is probably, a government asset, a la Lon Haruchi, the guy that murdered people at Ruby Ridge and murdered some more people at Waco. I'm sure old Lon Haruchi is probably a little too long in the tooth to be pulling triggers now, but maybe some of his cohorts might be. ¿Qué crees? Posible, no? But wait, there's more. We got some more? We sure as bleep do. If you remember, I covered this last night on the show, and I didn't show the footage, and I sort of leaned into a little bit of caution, saying, all right, I've heard tell in slow motion video showing that it could have been his body armor got hit mid-chest and the bullet ricocheted up and so forth. So I pulled a video today of a gentleman that's showing you just that. I don't know what his ballistic bona fides is, but he appears to be showing you how that might have just happened. Hit play.
Tool ammo, 223. I'm just gonna do one shot. A little extra on that. That was our impact. And this is a brand new piece of foam, so that one shot did that to your chin. So that's cool. Here's the bullet, actually. What's left of it. That's great. There's some more of it.
So, muy interesante, no? I thought so too. What else we got? We got a whole lot of death coming at you. I'm just adding to the optics of death tonight, it appears. What do we got? We got shots ringing out at UMass. Let's roll with that one a little bit. I told you, folks, we're going to have ops left, right, center, and otherwise, so you better lock and load.
This unfolding situation at UMass Boston, you can see people now clearly appear to be evacuating this dorm building. It is 240 Morrissey Boulevard. It's the Motley dorm building. And UMass Boston just issued an alert for a public threat. And so to avoid that area, I'm just being told here in the newsroom. So we saw kind of what began as a small police presence that then rapidly expanded. We saw what appeared to be a couple of dozen officers running toward this Motley dorm building.
So there's that. What else we got? I couldn't resist this one. I wasn't going to show this one because it wasn't really germane to the topic of tonight's show. But I got to say, as I often do in social media land, it's just trash being trash, folks. You can't make this bleep up, man. You got trash being trash. Let's roll it.
Yeah. Grab me out. Hey, yo, grab me out. Let's go, guys. Come on. Let's go, guys. I don't know. Let's go. I have no idea. Let's go. Come on, guys. What are you doing?
You got some piece of human garbage up here. After Charlie Kirk is shot, you got some piece of human garbage going up here stealing hats off the table and throwing them to people. I guess some of his low-class bottom feeder friends over here. I can't for the life of me understand why this cop didn't just tackle this guy to the ground, throw him in some handcuffs, and put him in the back of the car. That's just me. I mean, if I was this dude, that's what would have been going down on my end. So clearly, this whole area is a crime scene. This is the tent that he got shot in. Those are the hats, aka evidence at the crime scene. So you got some low-class bottom feeder piece of pond scum stealing evidence from the crime scene. He should have been thrown in the back of a car summariously. But, you know, that's just my thoughts on it. I could be a little crazy. We got a little time. We'll throw this one. We got a couple more, and we're going to have to go. Hundreds gather in Idaho at the capital city. Yep. Boise. Anyway, so we got a big candlelight vigil there in Idaho. But wouldn't you know, some low-class trash has got to muck it up for everybody else. Let's roll the video on this one. We might not show the whole thing. We'll just show.
This guy's gonna get fucked.
Show a bunch of scum being scum. From the reports, some piece of human garbage on a bicycle goes through there and starts saying some negative stuff towards Charlie Kirk. Obviously provoked the crowd. He apparently pushed the mess around and find out button, and he found out. That's the guy. You can't see him here. He shows up later. He's got like a little rainbow book bag strapped on. What a lovely individual. That's a lovely guy. It's another day. Another day getting attacked with scum. So there you go. We don't have to play the whole thing. It's all right. I've well surpassed my time for the evening. So, hopefully you've gleaned a little bit from this whole diatribe tonight, folks. If nothing else, maybe you've taken a second look at the optics of death. I've recommended this many times on the show, and I'm going to heed my own advice, assuredly, in the next few days. It becomes a sensory overload, and you need to get away from this darkness because, you know, as you look into the darkness looks into you. It really does. And you might not think the devil is there. You might not think the devil is really taking hold of you, and quite frankly, until it's too late. It's a great movie called Witchboard, classic, great horror movie, but a little bit of truth in that, I would say. They call it progressive entrapment. And I believe the longer you look into this darkness, the optics of death, the more it begins to look back into you and change you. That's what it's done to us for multiple generations now. The devil will change you. Because make no mistake about it, you don't change the devil changes you. Subtly, slowly, incrementally. Before you know it, you're doing mess you never thought you'd do. You're doing mess you didn't want to do. You're doing mess that now you're serving time for. So, I'm definitely not discouraging people from being defensive and being vigilant. I think if you gleaned anything from last night's show, you got that. So, we'll just leave you with that. Lock and load. Be ready for what's coming down. Get your eyes up always. You can't do everything, but you can do something. Get out there, do your part, make a difference, and I'll be seeing you sooner than later in the Anomic Age.
Thank you for listening to The Anomic Age, a John Age project. For past shows, further info, and to comment, go to anomicage.com. That's ANOMICAGE.com. Till next time, thank you for listening to The Anomic Age.